In our last several videos, we discussed how to use the PHP Code Sniffer library to verify our code is following an agreed upon coding standard, and how to run the PHP CS extension in Visual Studio Code to see where we're not following the code as we type. We'll eventually discuss how to move these checks to a continuous integration server, but wouldn't it be great if we could make sure our code was passing these checks before we push them anywhere? In this video, we'll discuss how to use Git's pre-commit hooks to run our static code analysis tools on just the set of files that we're modifying. Hello developers, and welcome to PHP Developers TV, your home for everything you need to know to be a knowledgeable PHP developer. I'm your host, Scott Keck-Warren, exploring the Git directory. Now, when we run git init on a directory, the command creates a .git directory inside of that directory. Git uses this folder to maintain all of its data associated with our repository. We're not going to go into most of the information, but here are some of the more important pieces. The config file contains settings about our repository. The objects directory contains all of the differences. And the hooks directory contains all of the hook scripts. The hooks directory comes with a set of sample scripts so we know what we can do. One of the more annoying parts about the Git hooks is that while they're in our Git repository, they're not kept as part of the repository. That means that when we add the file to our repository, it won't automatically show up in the rest of our team's .git hooks directory. Our solution is to keep a copy of the pre-commit script outside of the Git directory, and then recommend that people install it into their hooks directory. It's not an ideal solution, but it does work. There are also third-party scripts that will help us maintain them, and we may discuss that in another video. Our first pre-commit script. To get started with our pre-commit script, we're going to make it as simple as possible and just run PHP CS on both the app and the test directory of our sample Laravel project. To make our pre-commit script, we can just copy the existing precommit.sample file. We're going to erase what exists in here and fill it in with our own version. Now, before we're allowed to commit our code, our script will be run and we won't be allowed to create the commit if our code is found in violation of the standards. To demo this, we'll create a small modification to our user class, and now we will try to commit it. The amazing thing about this is because the script is part of our Git repository, most tools we use to interact with that repository will also run the script before creating the commit. For example, Visual Studio Code will display an error and ask us to refer to the log to figure out what to do to fix it. Now, there are two downsides to the very basic script that we created. The first is that the file we're getting errors on wasn't even a file we were trying to commit. We didn't cause the problem, but it's preventing us from committing our changes and requires us to spend time fixing someone else's code, which will make our pull request harder to review. The second is that even though we're only making changes to one file, it's running the checks on all of our files. As we add tools to our pre-commit script and files to our project, the amount of time it's going to take to run all of these files is going to get unbearably long. Our second pre-commit script. To help us with the problems that we outlined before, we're going to turn to the git diff command to help us find just the files that we've staged for the commit. Then we can run static analysis tools against just them. To do this, we're going to use the following command. Git diff, which will run the diff command to show us the changes in our repository, --diff filter equals AM, which will filter out just the files that were modified or created, --name only, which will just bring us the names of the files that we've modified, --cached, which will return files that have been staged for the commit and not every file that's been changed, and then app and tests. So we will get just the changes in our apps and tests directory, which is what we're mostly interested in, and then we're going to pipe that to grep with .php $. So we get just our PHP files. And so when we run that, we see that we get just our app user file, which we staged earlier using git add. Now, this list could be extremely lengthy, and some tools only accept a single file at a time. So instead of just pushing all the files to our static code analysis tools, we're going to pipe them through the xargs command, so each one gets executed individually. Finally, we're going to create a helper function to enable us to more easily add more static code analysis tools later. This first section displays the name of the command that we're running and then runs it and captures the exit code from it. Generally, when we run a tool, it's going to return an error when something is not working correctly. So now we're going to check and see if there was an error to say we should not continue. So this sets up the rest of our function where we're checking to see if there was an exit code that we're interested in. So 0 and 130 we're not concerned about because those are going to be error codes that we can safely ignore. But then if something else came back, then we're going to display the output and say there was a failure and exit 1. So then the script says there's a problem. Now we're going to collect all of the files that were changed in a variable. I'm also going to ignore some files that we're not interested in checking. Your list of files may vary depending on your project, but this is the list of files that I've created for my Laravel project. Next, we're going to run the command. Now to check our code, we can just switch over to the terminal and run our code just like if it's a normal script. Oh, and I made a mistake. So let's see where I made a mistake. Line 9. Oh, I think I need an extra space. Like that. Okay. And we can see now that our PHP code sniffer tool ran with successfully because the only thing it's checking now is our single test or our single file that we changed. So now we can do our commit again. And it will be successful. In future videos, we'll add more tools to this script to make it even more powerful. What you need to know. Git allows us to define scripts to perform validation checks. The precommit script checks if a commit is valid. Git diff allows us to find just the files that have been changed that we need. As always, thank you for watching our video. Please make sure you subscribe, comment, and like, as it does help others find us. Do you want to help support the channel? Find us on Patreon. We would love it, and we'll include your name in our list of supporters in each video. Are you using our script for your project? Let us know how it's going in the comments. This is Scott Keck-Warren for PHP Developers TV signing off and reminding you to keep coding.